The law office of Harrington and Price smelled of leather and old money. I sat in an uncomfortable chair, surrounded by my relatives, all dressed in their finest black attire. The car accident that took my parents had been 3 weeks ago, but this was the moment everything would change. My name is Evelyn Carter, and I was about to be disinherited. "Let's begin," Mr. Harrington said, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. He pulled out a thick envelope, breaking the seal with practiced precision. My Aunt Victoria leaned forward, her jewelry clinking softly. Uncle Robert cleared his throat. My cousin Daniel smirked from across the room, already certain of his victory. I kept my face carefully neutral, but my hands trembled slightly in my lap. The last conversation I'd had with my parents replayed in my mind. "Banking isn't a real career," my father had said, dismissing my work at the local credit union. "Not compared to what Daniel's doing in corporate finance." My mother had nodded in agreement. "Really, Evelyn, at 27, you should be thinking bigger. Your cousin is already managing millions." They never understood. I'd chosen my job because I wanted to help regular people manage their money, not play with wealthy investors' fortunes. But in the Carter family, if you weren't chasing millions, you weren't trying. Mr. Harrington's voice brought me back to the present. "To our son, Daniel Carter, in recognition of his exceptional business acumen and dedication to the family legacy, we leave our controlling interest in Carter Capital, valued at approximately $15 million. Daniel's smirk widened into a full grin. No surprise there. He'd been my parents' golden child since we were kids. "To Victoria and Robert Carter, we leave our summer estate in Nantucket and associated properties." The list went on: properties, investments, art collections, each piece of my parents' fortune distributed to relatives who'd played their game, who'd chased status and wealth above all else. Finally, Mr. Harrington reached my name. "To our daughter, Evelyn." He paused, squinting at the paper. "We leave the following message. Your constant refusal to embrace the Carter family values and ambitions has shown us that you don't deserve a share in what we've built. Perhaps this will finally teach you the importance of proper financial achievement." The room fell silent. Even Daniel had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Nothing?" I whispered. "They left me nothing." "Well," Aunt Victoria said with false sympathy, "you never did contribute to the family business, always playing with your little community projects. Those little projects had helped dozens of families avoid foreclosure during the recession. They'd taught financial literacy to hundreds of people who'd never had the chance to learn. But to my family, if it didn't make millions, it didn't count." "There is one more item," Mr. Harrington interjected, pulling out another envelope. "This was left in my care by your grandfather, Henry Carter, before his death 6 years ago. He instructed that it should be delivered to you only after your parents' reading." My grandfather. The thought of him brought unexpected tears to my eyes. He'd been different from the rest of the family, quieter, more thoughtful. He'd actually listened when I talked about my dreams of helping people understand finance. The envelope was heavy, made of thick cream paper. My name was written on it in Grandpa's elegant handwriting. "What is it?" Daniel demanded. "Another lecture about family responsibility?" I opened it carefully, pulling out several sheets of paper and a key, old and brass, like something from an antique shop. "My dearest Evelyn," I read silently, my grandfather's voice echoing in my memory. "If you're reading this, then 2 things have happened. Your parents have maintained their short-sighted view of success, and you've maintained your principles despite their pressure. I'm proud of you for that. Your parents never understood that true wealth isn't just about money. It's about what you do with it. While they were building Carter Capital, I was building something else, something they never knew about. The key you're holding opens a door to a different kind of legacy, one I've prepared for someone who understands that finance should serve people, not rule them. Visit the old boathouse at Silver Pine Lake. You'll know what to do. All my love, Grandpa Henry. P.S. Don't tell the others, they wouldn't understand." I looked up to find my relatives staring at me expectantly. "Well," Daniel pressed, "what did the old man leave you? Some worthless advice about helping people?" He laughed at his own joke. I carefully folded the letter and slipped it into my bag along with the key. "Just some memories," I said quietly. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. Daniel talked excitedly about his plans for Carter Capital. Aunt Victoria discussed renovating the Nantucket estate. Uncle Robert calculated property values on his phone. I sat silently thinking about the boathouse at Silver Pine Lake. Grandpa had taken me there often when I was young, teaching me to fish while telling stories about his own father, who'd built our family's fortune from nothing during the Great Depression. "Money is just a tool, Evelyn," he'd say, helping me bait my hook. "What matters is how you use it to help others." I'd forgotten about those lessons in the years since his death, too busy defending my career choices to my parents. But now, as the meeting ended, Daniel caught up with me in the parking lot. "Hey, no hard feelings about the will, right? I mean, you had to know this was coming. You've never shown any real ambition." I looked at my cousin, handsome, confident, and utterly blind to anything beyond profit margins. "You know what, Daniel? You're right. I never had the kind of ambition you understand." I got into my modest hybrid car, a stark contrast to his luxury SUV. But maybe I had something better. The drive to Silver Pine Lake took an hour. Each mile carried me further from the world of Carter Capital and closer to whatever secret my grandfather had left behind. The boathouse stood exactly as I remembered it, a weathered wooden structure perched on the lake's edge. In summer, it had housed the family boats. In winter, it had been Grandpa's quiet retreat. My hand shook slightly as I fitted the brass key into the lock. It turned with a solid click. Inside, dust motes danced in the afternoon light streaming through grimy windows. The air smelled of old wood and forgotten memories. Boat hooks hung on the walls. Fishing rods gathered cobwebs in corners. But something was different. The old workbench along the back wall. I remembered it being solid wood, but now I could see seams that shouldn't be there. I ran my fingers along the edge, feeling for a slight indentation. The key fit perfectly. The entire workbench top swung up on hidden hinges, revealing a steel safe built into the foundation. Another keyhole waited, this one modern and electronic. A note was taped to the safe's surface. "Your birthday, the year you decided to help people instead of chase millions." I smiled, remembering. I was 23, fresh out of college. My parents had arranged an interview at a prestigious investment firm. Instead, I'd walked into the local credit union and asked about their community outreach program. I entered the date, 05/17/2018. The safe clicked, then hummed. When it opened, I gasped. Inside were stacks of documents, files, and a leather-bound journal. But it was the letter on top that caught my eye, addressed to the board of directors at Carter Capital. As I read, my hands began to shake again, not from nervousness, but from shock, from revelation, from the understanding that my grandfather had left me something far more valuable than mere money. He had left me the truth about our family's fortune, and with it, the power to change everything. The leather journal felt heavy in my hands as I sat in my small apartment later that night, surrounded by the documents from Grandpa's safe. What I found was more than just family secrets. It was a carefully orchestrated plan for justice. The first entry was dated 1987. Today, my son showed his true colors. He took credit for Michael Shaw's market analysis, used it to secure the Wellington account. Michael was fired. The board praised Richard's brilliant insight. My son is becoming something I never wanted him to be. I recognized the name. Michael Shaw had been a junior analyst who'd supposedly made a catastrophic error. He'd disappeared from the financial world afterward, but according to Grandpa's journal, he'd been right all along. More entries followed, each documenting similar incidents. Stolen ideas, buried reports, manipulated numbers. My father had built Carter Capital on other people's work, crushing anyone who got in his way. But Grandpa had been watching and planning. The letter to the board was a masterpiece of careful documentation. Every theft, every manipulation, every buried truth, all supported by evidence Grandpa had gathered over decades. Bank records, original documents, witness statements. More importantly, there was a second set of books, Carter Capital's real financial records, showing where the money had actually gone. Another letter tucked inside the journal read, "My dear Evelyn, I spent years building a parallel investment structure. Every time they buried someone's work, I invested in that person's future. Every time they stole an idea, I put money into the original innovator's ventures. They thought they were building an empire. I was building its replacement." My hands trembled as I reviewed the documents. Grandpa hadn't just recorded the truth. He'd created a shadow portfolio worth over $60 million, all invested in the people my father had wronged. And he'd left it all to me. The next morning, I walked into Carter Capital headquarters, dressed not in designer labels, but in a simple professional suit. The security guard almost didn't let me in. He wasn't used to seeing me here. "I have an appointment with the board," I said quietly, showing him the letter. Daniel intercepted me in the lobby. "What are you doing here? Come to beg for a job?" He smirked. "Sorry, we only hire people with actual financial experience." I smiled. "Actually, I'm here to discuss some interesting financial records. Would you like a preview?" I pulled out one document, the real numbers behind the Wellington account. Daniel's face went pale. "Where did you get that?" Grandpa was very thorough. He kept copies of everything. The boardroom fell silent as I entered. 12 men and women in expensive suits, all looking at me with mixed confusion and disdain. "Miss Carter," the chairman began, "this is a closed meeting. I think you'll want to hear this," I interrupted, placing Grandpa's letter on the table. "It concerns the true financial state of Carter Capital." For the next hour, I laid out the evidence. The stolen ideas, the buried innovations, the real numbers behind the company's success. With each revelation, the room's atmosphere grew heavier. "These are serious allegations," the chairman said finally. "If true." "Oh, they're true," I confirmed. "And there's more. Would you like to know where Grandpa invested the money he made from exposing these truths?" I pulled up a presentation on my laptop. Michael Shaw, that analyst my father destroyed, Grandpa funded his startup. It's worth $250 million now. Lisa Park, whose trading algorithm was stolen in 1995, her new firm is revolutionizing AI-driven investments. Daniel burst in, his face red. "She's lying. This is just revenge for the will." "Actually," a quiet voice said from the doorway, "she's telling the truth." Michael Shaw himself stood there, along with half a dozen other familiar faces, all people whose work had built Carter Capital, whose success my grandfather had secretly supported. "Henry Carter was a silent investor in all our ventures," Michael continued. "He believed in us when his own son tried to destroy us, and now his granddaughter is offering us a chance at justice." The chairman leaned forward. "What exactly are you proposing, Ms. Carter?" I smiled. "A merger, or more accurately, a takeover. You see, Grandpa's shadow portfolio, the one he built by investing in the people this company wronged, is now worth more than Carter Capital itself." I let that sink in before continuing. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way. The easy way. Carter Capital becomes part of our new ethical investment group. The hard way. We take this evidence public and your stock price won't survive the scandal." Daniel lunged forward. "You can't what?" I cut him off. "Can't prove that our family's fortune was built on stolen ideas. Can't show how many careers were destroyed to maintain the Carter facade. Grandpa kept receipts, Daniel, for everything." The board meeting lasted hours. By sunset, papers were signed. Carter Capital would be absorbed into the new venture, Shaw Carter Ethical Investments. As I left the building, Daniel caught up with me in the parking lot. "Why?" he demanded. "Why didn't Grandpa just expose Dad years ago?" I looked at my cousin, seeing not the arrogant financier, but the lost boy who'd been taught the wrong lessons about success. Because he wanted to prove something bigger, I explained. That ethical investment isn't just morally right, it's more profitable. Every person Dad stepped on, every idea he stole, Grandpa invested in them, helped them build something better. And now they're worth more than everything Dad built through deception. I got into my car but turned back one last time. You can still be part of this, Daniel, but you'll have to learn new values. Aunt Victoria and Uncle Robert tried to contest Grandpa's portfolio, claiming I'd manipulated him. But the documentation was perfect. Every investment, every decision, carefully recorded and legally bulletproof. 1 year later, I sat in my new office, the same one my father had once occupied. But instead of intimidating decorations, the walls held photographs of successful projects, community development initiatives, ethical startups, small businesses we'd helped grow. Michael Shaw, now my Chief Innovation Officer, knocked on my door. "The first round of community investment grants is ready for review," he said, smiling. 10 promising local businesses, all needing guidance more than they need millions. I picked up the files, thinking of Grandpa. He'd shown me that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the positive change you create. My phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. After 6 months of resistance, he'd finally agreed to join our ethical investment training program. "Starting to understand what Grandpa meant," he wrote. "Maybe there's more to success than just profits." I smiled, opening my drawer to touch Grandpa's old journal. The last entry, written just before his death, read, "Evelyn will build something better than an empire. She'll build a legacy of positive change. And that's worth more than all the millions Richard chased." Looking out over the city, I knew he was right. My parents had left me nothing in their will, thinking it would teach me about proper financial achievement. Instead, their rejection had led me to a fortune far greater than money, the chance to prove that success and ethics aren't enemies. They're partners in building a better world. And that's exactly what I intended to do. Because sometimes the greatest inheritance isn't the money you're given, it's the truth you discover and the change you create with it. In the end, I did own it all, not just the millions, but something far more valuable, a chance to redefine what success really means. And that was the greatest gift Grandpa could have left me. The next morning, I received an unexpected letter. Inside was a photograph I'd never seen before. Grandpa sitting at the old boathouse, a young me on his lap, both of us laughing as we held up a fish. On the back, in his familiar handwriting, "Remember, Evelyn, the best investments aren't in stocks or bonds. They're in people, in dreams, in doing what's right. You've proven you understand that. Now show the world." I pinned the photo on my office wall, right next to our company's new mission statement, "Building wealth through ethical investment, one community at a time." Grandpa had given me more than just a fortune. He'd given me a purpose. And every day, as I helped another small business grow or funded another innovative idea, I knew I was building something he would be proud of, something worth more than all the millions in the world, a legacy of positive change.